Hey everybody, welcome back to Shock and Schlock. I'm your host, Charles Gillis, and today it's going old school style recording on my phone because my computer once again decided to crap out on me. Today, I'm back with a review for a 2024 film, the first release from Tarnished Vision Films, a new releasing label started by Jacob Green, the director of the film I'm talking about today, as well as one of the international, I believe is what he refers to it as, sector of New Film Order. So I was very excited to check out his new film, 2024's Vexanthrone. Jacob had previously directed Slave Dolls as well, which I know Spooky talked about on his channel. And I was excited to check this out. Thank you, Jacob, beforehand as well for sending me a review copy of this as well. Obviously, as always, that doesn't affect my score or how I feel in a film. I do appreciate it, though, when people send me review copies. So, yeah, let's get into it. So, 2024, Vexanthrone. It's a film directed by, as I mentioned, Jacob Green, a man who plays a person simply referred to as the artist. And the artist has created a sculpture that was deemed too offensive for the art community. And we are sort of following and showing the creation of the sculpture that he's making. And we get interviews. We don't see the interviewer, but we see him talking about the creation of the sculpture and the art making process and the physical and mental toll that it's taken on him. The film is sort of a mix of like an art house, surrealist type of horror film mixed with body horror, and talks about the creation of art and the process of it. It's sort of a commentary on that. And I have to say, this film is stellar. I am extremely excited for what Tarnished Vision Films is going to be putting out this year after watching this, because this film is fantastic. The music, top-notch. We get this sort of atmospheric, dark, dreary sort of soundtrack to this. It also has like a little bit of an eeriness, because that's how the film is. It feels very melancholic, but also very eerie and disturbing at times. Before I get into sort of what the film, in my eyes, is trying to achieve, I want to talk about the technical aspects of the film first, because this film presumably was done on a fairly low budget, but is extremely, extremely impressive technically. The special effects are stellar when they're there. They're not overly done, I would say, but when they are there, they're fantastic. The body horror in this is done really well. We see Jacob Green, he plays the main character of this as well. We see the artist, the character, his deterioration physically as he's making this art piece, and he's using like literally pieces of himself to make this, and inserting things in himself and putting things into the art and vice versa. It's very grotesque and difficult to watch at times, and I think that is a great achievement. The special effects in this just look crazy. It is spectacular. The cinematography in this is stellar. Much of the film's scenes take place in sort of a dark environment, but you are always able to see like the focal points, what you're supposed to see, but the darkness sort of adds this element of like, what else is happening in the background, like what is going on here. It almost feels like a representation of like what's going through the artist's brain mentally as he's making this as well. Like he's so singularly focused on what he's doing that everything else sort of fades out, which I really liked about this film as well. I think the acting in this also is great. Jacob's character, the artist, is very well done. The dialogue is really interesting. He has these sort of monologues about the artistic like creation process, as well as like his changing mental state. And as the film goes on, things just start going like deteriorating, like him physically and mentally starts going downhill. So like the way of his thinking and what he's saying starts changing over time and becomes much more like, it feels like he's losing control on what he's doing because he's putting everything that he can into this project. And this slow deterioration mentally feels natural, and it sort of almost sneaks up on you. Just like Jacob in the film, I feel like that's sort of his character. Like he's so invested in the project that he's lost sight of like everything else. And there comes a point where he's talking about if creation, like change, is a good or bad thing, and it almost feels like he almost feels regretful of how far that he's gone into this, but he's so far into it that he can't turn back now. Sort of haunting. It's definitely a interesting concept that's explored with that as well. And I feel like this film provides a parallel to presumably Jacob's filmmaking process as well. Like, you put everything into a film, it consumes you. Like, you start out and it starts as this just idea in your head, but as you go on, it consumes more and more of your time, more and more of your life, physically and mentally. Like, you deteriorate as you're putting everything into this. Like, you sink into this hole and you just keep going at this singular thing that you're working on. It can be writing, filmmaking, whatever. In this case, it feels very personal to Jacob, like talking about his own filmmaking process, but told in a more extreme and literal way, with him, literally taking pieces of himself and putting into this art. But it's really interesting to watch. I've never seen like the artistic process explored in a way like this. I mean, maybe to a lesser extent, but never as almost like brutal and unflinching as it is in this. Some of the moments in this are really just very graphic and gross and disturbing, but they always seem to fit what the film is trying to do. And I don't want to spoil anything, but towards the final moments of the film, when the project is like done, the methods that are used in its creation are so extreme. It feels like when you're towards the end of a project, like you are so far into it that you're willing to do anything to get this made, because it's like an extension of yourself. In this case, in the film, it feels like an organic extension of Jacob's character in this. Just really interesting to watch that. And like when the process is done, it almost feels like a birthing almost of like this art piece, like it's a piece of you that's finally been released. And yeah, just really, really enjoyed this film a lot. If you're into like art house horror, this is definitely something to watch. I would say even for people who aren't into that, this is a great film, because even from just like a surface level perspective, it's an interesting watch just from like a body horror standpoint as well. So I highly recommend checking this out. I'm very excited to check out what Jacob puts out in the future as well. Excited to see what Tarnished Vision Films holds both this year and going forward. Excited to see what indie horror has this year as well, because this was certainly a strong start in my eyes. And yeah, that's it for today, but I'm going to be doing a full, more in-depth review for Severed Cinema as well, so keep an eye out for that one. And as always, I've been your host, Herschel Gale, signing off for today. 0 thoughts, 0 editing, 0 brain cells, and 0 planning. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't. Keep your notifications on. I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching.